Where did the name Extract come from?
Extract came from kind of during the L Stu era. I was hanging around DJ Disc, who was the scratcher in the band, and Disc was like, "We got to get you a name." So we were actually just kind of reading the back of a cereal box, and it said like some sort of extract, and we're like, "That's it. That's perfect."
What was your first impression of Brain?
I knew of him from the Limbo Maniacs. I saw them live, so I knew he was a monster, but I just didn't know he was such a cool person
Yeah,
until we hung out. And he was a great teacher and just kind of, I just think he's one of the monsters, you know.
I agree. Agree.
You've had a couple podcasts with him, right?
Yeah, I've done a few. Just the nicest guy, nicest in the world.
Totally. Totally. Super cool.
Was it through Brain then that you met Bucket?
It's through Brain that I met Bucket. So, like, he did the Praxis record, and then Bill would come out and we'd hang out with Bill. And Brain introduced me to Bill, and Bucket was there. And then Bucket I met in that era. And that's kind of how I met Buckethead. And then I was lucky enough to have a little run there. Really good memories of hanging out with that guy and having fun and making great music and just, watching him go nuts.
Yeah. So was he Buckethead when you met him, or Brian, or?
He was Buckethead when I met him. And whenever I'd break out a video camera, he'd be Buckethead. If we were going out to eat pizza or cruise around, I always just called him Bucket. I don't think I ever called him Brian once. Obviously, incredibly talented dude. I just liked his mind frame, the way he approached it, his mind.
What was it like your first impression? Like shy and quiet?
Super shy and quiet and funny, like great sense of humor.
A bit of dark humor?
Yes, dark humor and a funny way of talking. I mean, he grew up like in Southern California around the surf skate thing, so we kind of would make fun of stuff like that. I'd show him surf mags, and he'd always pick out the weirdest guy in the surf mag. This guy looked like a skeleton doing a weird turn. He'd be like, "Look at that freak!" He'd be more into the off the wall guys than the
Yeah.
marquee guys. Brainfall, I told you this, but we would just drive around the Oakland and Berkeley and just look at people and carts or weird dudes, whatever, and just get off on it. Like, look at that guy, look at that freak. And he's incredible for that, like endless entertainment. We used to watch a lot of Hendrix videos because I was really into Hendrix, and we watch like it was on the other day. It was the Rainbow Bridge Hendrix live in Maui,
Oh
and it
yeah.
showed like this the surfer dude doing this face, like imitating Jimmy during Foxy Lady and Bucket, and I used to always pause that and laugh, like, look at this
Yeah.
guy, and look at that. So I saw it the other day, so I thought of him. Or my kid will be into a roller coaster, my son, and Bucket and I talked about that a lot. And so,
Did he ever talk about guns when he was with you? Because I think that's when you were making Bermuda that he joined around that time.
yeah, yeah, he did. I remember when he was just learning the parts. He had to learn the parts. He was in our studio. He'd played Welcome to the Jungle on the guitar exactly, and I'm like, oh, that's how that goes. And he'd show it to me, and that was kind of cool because he had to learn it. He was saying how Axel was a freak and he liked him and that he loved that he was this intense freak, and he gave him this doll of, you probably know all these stories, and so he really liked all that. I think he was really super into it in the beginning.
Yeah, but then who knows? Who knows what happened?
And yeah, you'll have to ask him someday, but I know it was it just did. The beginning expectations and the initial hit of hanging out with Axel and getting the doll and all the radness and seeing what a intense freak he was and how Bucket loved people like that. And then something else happened after that. Like, oh, didn't work out that way. So yeah, I don't know anything on that side. He was such an artist, like such a pure artist, that he kind of would get worn down by a lot of things. I think he felt things more than most people, or he didn't have his armor up from just like normal things, like normal stuff. He would get to him more than you would ever think. So he tried to protect himself, and he wanted to be around just as friends, which we all were. But I guess it's his circle must have got smaller and smaller. And then he had the health thing and his parents thing, and I think now he's just like, I just hang out with three or four people that he
Yeah.
really feels good with. I would love to see him again. I'm sure. I think Brain talks to him now and again. I know Brain does. Well, I think Brain and those guys weren't into it because they thought it was cheesy early on, corny. But you're right, with Bucket, it's always guys like you, just fans that care and like everything, that kind of make, message boards or YouTube clips or whatever to keep him going.
Yeah, just try and share it all around.
Really, yeah, and share it all around. I think it's awesome.
So you mentioned Bill Laswell earlier. What was it like meeting Bill?
Bill is the guy. I mean, he's the guy that puts it all together. The way his philosophy of music, he puts people together. He hired me for a bunch of stuff for a long time, and he kind of is the lighthouse that put us all together in a weird way, even to this day.
Did you meet Bootsy at the time?
I never got to meet Bootsy. Really, Bootsy and Bucket have that special bond, right? They got that thing that's like that. So I never did get to meet Bootsy, but since I do play bass, he's obviously one of my bass heroes. With like Bucket and Brain, our downtime, since my downtime favorite thing to do is surf. They wouldn't. Sometimes I'd skate a little with Brain, but Bucket was mostly putting on old videos in our downtime. We'd watch tons of Jimi Hendrix, tons of old horror movies, of course. Any old documentaries and stuff like that. We would just watch them and trip out and get inspiration from or sample off, or that was really fun to do. Other than walking around through the streets of Oakland, Berkeley, Emeryville, and going into pawn shops and just getting weird things and things like that. And then of course we go to get Zach's Pizza. That was Bucket's favorite thing, always in between sessions. The standard stuff. We did other stuff too, but it was usually that. It was just kind of like cruising around, people watching a lot of movies and music stuff, and then just getting to work. After recording them all day, I'd go home and I'm like trying to go to bed, and I'm hearing like in my head, it was like 10 hours of just
Craziness.
Insane roller coasters. Yeah, I would hear it in my head. I remember that all night. He's a machine.
Yeah. Did you ever go with him to any of these amusement parks or roller coasters?
No, I missed all that going to Disneyland with him, and I've probably gone 20 times in the last 20 years because I have kids are a little bit older now, but they're teenagers. But we would go once a year, and then so I always thought of Bucket all the time, like, oh, I'll meet you on the Haunted Mansion. I'd always look for him, like, where's that guy? Last time we hung out, my kids were like 3 and 4, and he would do cool stuff like play guitar for them when they were 2 and 3 and 4, and like he'd just play, and they just trip out on his hands. They look weird and spidery to him, and I do remember that memory. He was always, and he's good with kids because he likes how kids are, pure and into creative things. Last time I saw Bucket was actually 2 years ago. I saw him playing in Santa Cruz with Brain and Dan.
Oh, right.
And I went and watched him, and he was incredible, and Brain was incredible too, and they were great. And that was that, but I didn't even get to talk to him. Like, I couldn't go see him or hang out or do any of the things, you know what I mean? It was just sort of like, it just couldn't happen. And I really did want to reconnect with the dude, so hopefully he'll reconnect. That's what I'm hopeful for. Like 2 years ago, we were, talking to a few people, and I think he was going to be involved in some fashion, but some people were into it and some weren't. So we kind of went this other direction, which, from Brain, called Mars Mechanics.
Mars Mechanics, yeah. I was listening to the album yesterday, funnily enough. Great album.
Oh, right on. You heard it already. Beautiful.
I love Hair of the Dog. That's my favorite one so far.
Hair of the Dog. Oh, yeah, the slow one. The slow, sad one.
Cool. That's Merv's playing on that, right?
That's Merv's playing on that. That's just Merv, Brain, and I. We dropped it yesterday, so that's awesome. You heard it that fast. It is inspired by the Frank Zappa rock stuff, like the Shut Up and Play Your Guitar era Frank, kind of a guitar record. Yeah, but Bucket could have fit in if he would have wanted to play on that. That would have been fantastic. But me, Merv, and Brain have a really good chemistry going.
Yeah.
Like we play great together, so we're really happy, doing this Mars Mechanic.
Merv is top notch on that album.
He's so top notch. He's truly one of the most incredible players.
I don't know if you know, but Bucket actually shared that last week. He put on his website about how Merv is one of the greatest guitar players.
Wow, that's cool. I'll let Merv know that. Well, he is. I mean, they used to know each other in the early '90s, and I think they jammed together, shared the stage. And Merv's another genius. He's incredible. And it's funny, on that song you're talking about, Hair of the Dog, Merv had an outtake solo that was more soulful, emotional, P-funk, less Frank. That's equally as good. So we had the Frank one, which is the one that made the record, and then we had this other one that's incredible, more melodic, more soulful, that's unreleased. So maybe we'll do a second mix.
So where did the name come from, Mars Mechanics?
Mars Mechanics came from Merv's daughter.
Right.
I think she's 12.
Right.
We were playing her some of the first record we did, some of the sounds, and she goes, "It sounds like you guys were mechanics working in Mars," or something like that.
Oh, wow.
And we just started laughing, and Merv's like, "What do you think?" He just texted us, and we just laughed. We're like, "Let's do it."
Where did the album cover come from? The weird hot dog and...
The floating hot dog. We had a couple different options. Merv's really good at art, and he had this kind of really freaky looking robot, like AI looking person that was cool looking. That it was kind of scary, and it was kind of like AI getting chipped, futuristic weirdo thing. And then on the other hand, he's like, "Well, I also have this one. It was a hot dog with mustard on it." A little bit of a play off Let's Be Frank, I guess. The word Frank, I don't know, Frankfurter.
Right, yeah.
And we have our we're goofball cretins, and we just kind of wanted to be goofy. I listened to the podcast you did with Brain. I thought it was so cool because you had fan questions. Not like, I don't have fans like that, but that was cool. You did a good job on that. But that was fun for Brain trying to listen like you did. You had a funny one saying, "Who's the rapper on?"
Oh, yeah.
Boba Fett, something or other. And that's my friend since childhood that was just hanging around us in the studio that day. And that one threw Brain off. He thought it was Islam Shabazz. And that made me laugh. But it was Nate.
Nate, a.k.a. Boba Fett, a.k.a. Tree.
Oh, wow. No, that was Nate. Okay, that was Extract's friend. Right.